And so to go right back to the beginning of the 1200s, in this area, we have the monastery here at Tongland. An incredible feat. We open our hearts to that mystery that this was a very sacred space. It's interesting that the people who came to this area to found this particular monastery were Norbertine fathers. They were not Cistercians as in Dundrennan or in Glenrus, but they were the pre-Monstratensians, so they weren't monks. And so we've got Monk's Way coming in here. It's really canons regular of St Norbert, pre-Monstratensians. That's who were here. And they were founded by St Norbert with the particular charism of being members of the order of St Augustine, but also influenced by the Cistercians and St Bernard. And so the religious life here was very austere. It was one which was rooted in prayer and in contemplation. And the pre-Monstratensians, as opposed to the Cistercians, were particularly devoted to the hours and to the liturgy. They had their own pre-Monstratensian rite. So in this space, in this area, we had the High Mass would be celebrated and the times of prayer and reflection. There would also be much devotion to silence. And so as we reflect back on the tradition and the memory of this sacred place, we do so with the foundation of the monks or the religious community, which were the pre-Monstratensians. They were committed to a life of faith and a life of prayer. They were committed to their celebration of God and their worship of God, and the outreach eventually to the local community. I invite you then, as we remember that tradition on which our other churches will build on, just to take a moment to savour the silence, to remember that the sacredness of this place is rooted in silence. And for a few moments we enter into that silence, united with those who have prayed and encountered God in this sacred space.
Scottish Episcopal Church. Who are we? Highly significant that I am standing here between my two Christian colleagues, the Catholic and the Reformed. I stand here as an Episcopal, priest and minister. Very significant. I am rector of Greyfriars Church, Kirkcudbright, and St Mary's Gatehouse of Fleet, also interim priest for Castle Douglas and Dalbeattie for a few weeks more. I am also covering the bloodiest part of our historical introduction today, from the Reformation in Scotland around 1560 to well into the years of the 18th century. Indeed, some of the Episcopal history is that bloody. I really should have a fast getaway car or coach and horses to clear off, because both the Catholics and the Presbyterians have plenty ought against us. We are actually the third largest Christian church in Scotland, and we are sometimes called locally the wee English Kirk. This is a bit of a misnomer. Not all of us are English. We are part of the worldwide Anglican Communion, but unlike the Church of Ireland or the Church in Wales, we are not a daughter of the Church of England. Thus, the Archbishop of Canterbury is recognised and sometimes respected, but has no jurisdiction whatsoever. We have our own 7 bishops, plenty, one of whom is a Primus to lead us. Many of our church members are English, especially in more recent years. Like our Catholic fellow Christians, we too trace our origins back to the great Scottish saints such as St Andrew, St Columba, St Mungo, and of course in this area, St Ninian, whose feast day is next Sunday. And if you be happening to go nowhere else and want to hear all about St Ninian, come to Greyfriars Kirk next Sunday.
The history of Scottish Presbyterianism since the Reformation has been one of conflict. There was conflict, as Stephen has said, between those who favoured an episcopal style of government with bishops and those who favoured the Presbyterian system, which was governed by a series of courts, of which the highest was the General Assembly, then the Synod, then the Presbytery, and finally at parish level, the Kirk Session. According to the General Assembly of 1565, every true preacher of Jesus Christ is a Christian bishop, therefore episcopacy was unnecessary. But as well as fighting the Episcopalians, there were divisions also within the Presbyterians. The biggest bone of contention was on the topic of patronage. Put simply, patronage was the role of the landowner in the appointment of the minister. Patronage went right back to the Middle Ages, when pious lairds built churches for which they appointed priests. There was a strong attempt at the Reformation to abolish patronage and for ministers to be elected by the congregation. But it wasn't that simple, because it was the landowners who had the power and the money and the land upon which the churches were built.
There are some debts of gratitude to be mentioned. It is remarkable to think that the Tongland Bell of 1633 is now 385 years old. For 180 years it was swinging on top of this little tower in the old parish church, and afterwards moved to the 1813 church about 205 years ago. It was last used 57 years ago and has been in the Stewartry Museum and under their care, and we thank them very gratefully for their help in providing us with a treasured piece of evidence, and we're happy to have had their cooperation. It has some cracks, so I'm not allowed to hit it with a sharp hammer, but I've got a rubber hammer, and I hope you'll be able to hear something of its tone. First time it's been rung here for roughly 60 years. Likewise, for the Rerick Bell, which is in working order, we're truly grateful to the Bengairn Parish for the loan of the 1798 Rerick Bell from Dundrennan. Now, Dr. David Devereux has been labouring in blissful retirement, pursuing a forensic study deep in trenches following the Magna Carta celebration here 3 years ago. He has been assisted by a long list of dedicated enthusiasts who have been on hands and knees in all weathers since then. It includes John Picken, Craig Fabian, John Allison, among many names, and Jenny Roberts in particular, I think, who must have a perfect attendance. Perhaps they should come to Sunday school. Thank you all to them for revealing our past, which has been hidden deep beneath the soil. David and Jenny will be displaying their discoveries and describing the walls they've found at a table beside the trenches as we make our way over.
Right, I was actually in the middle.
Yeah, well,
All right.
And you can put your hands in my hand, one each.
Ladies and gentlemen, normally at this stage of cutting a cake you would toast the bride and groom.
Which one shall I have?
You've got your choice today, Val.
I'm already willing for you.
That's a new experience for it.
Every blessing on this union.
Well done.
Hey. Very good. Nice to see you.